I'm here in Assisi at the Church of Santa Maria Maggiore. First, it's very moving. He's a saint of our time who speaks our language. He used to say that the Eucharist is the path that leads to God. He also said that we are all born original, but many die. Photocopies, which is what happens to many people who try to be someone else on the internet and forget to look inside themselves. Carlo looked inside himself. He made his modest life into what he understood it should be, a vehicle. He was a messenger. What was so special about Carlo Acutis that made him a saint? And is his body preserved or is it incorrupt since his death in 2006? To understand exactly what happened to Carlo's body, I spoke with the most reliable source possible. Domenico Sorrentino, the Bishop of Assisi, accompanied the exhumation of the body at the cemetery and was responsible for the process that led to the canonization of the Italian teenager. The body is in here. Here is the life of the body. And I also want to introduce you to the Brazilian nun from the sanctuary where Carlo Acutis' tomb was placed.
Many people arrive and are impacted when they see the body, but Carlo is that sign, and he is just a bridge to encounter Christ.
He used to say, not me,
but God.
For many reasons, it's very moving to be so close to something that is now so sacred to so many people in the world. And that represents a great renewal, renewal. And for it to be displayed here precisely in the place of St. Francis's renunciation, something that happened 800 years ago when one of the most important saints in Christian history gave up everything to start his story. And now the young man who is the renewal of this mission and this message is presented to us here. It's very touching, it's very moving, it's moving.
We didn't ask to be here. God prepared St. Francis, invited us to be here right in the place of renunciation. And we see that here is a sign of hope. We as sisters are always praying. We are witnessing the change in the pilgrims who come here. At first we saw that people mostly came out of curiosity. Oh, he's going to be a saint and his body is here, so they came expecting to see him. And today we can already see that those who come always come to ask for a grace.
It was the Church's decision to display Carlo Acutis' body with the youthful clothes he used to wear, the sweatshirt, jeans, and sneakers. The boy Carlo seemed to know the path that led to eternal life. Carlo was the son of Italians, but he was born in London. The family was living there. And he was a boy like the others, playing his invisible guitar, being a gamer and programming on the computer, getting excited about soccer, cheering for Milan, filming all the time with his camera, making a snowman with his father. Nossa meta to be the infinite, not the finite, he used to say. Infinity is our place. Since his first communion at 7 years old, Carlo wanted to live life the way he understood a holy life should be lived. A pure life that he wanted dedicated to the Catholic faith and especially to the sacraments. Mass, communion, and confession understood as a path to reconciliation with God and with the Church. It's interesting to think that there is no record of Carlo ever wanting to become a priest and to truly dedicate himself to a religious life. He practiced religion in his own way, and in his own way he was a preacher. He lived in turbulent and very violent times. He was misunderstood, persecuted, betrayed, but his message endured through the centuries and transformed the world. The life of Jesus Christ is a story of courage, love, and faith that still inspires people today. Carlo was born in London on May 3, 1991. But since his parents were Italian, they soon moved to Milan. It was there that the boy grew up, went to school, and later created a website that documented miracles. That's right. Before performing miracles, Carlo wanted to learn about them and share them as a way to bring other people to what he understood as the path of holiness. Not in the sense of canonization, but in a more secular sense. Simply to lead a life dedicated to justice, truth, and love for others, which was, after all, the core of Jesus' teachings. Carlo died at the age of 15 from an aggressive leukemia. It was very quick. And it's interesting that he died on October 12, 2006, which is exactly the day of Our Lady of Aparecida, which would be associated with the first miracle attributed to the intercession of Carlo Acutis. According to a case at the Vatican, the miracle happened in Campo Grande, in Mato Grosso do Sul, in 2013. It involved the miraculous healing of a 4-year-old boy named Mateus, who suffered from a rare congenital anomaly known as annular pancreas. This caused Mateus serious difficulties with digestion and also vomiting, putting his health at risk. The boy's family was Catholic, already knew the story of Carlo Acutis, and decided to pray for his intercession. The parents and the boy took part in a celebration at São Sebastião Parish, bringing a reliquary with a piece of Carlo's clothing. After the prayer and the fervent request for healing, Mateus was taken to the hospital for tests. It is said that to the doctor's surprise, he was completely healed with no need for surgery or treatment. The case was analyzed by medical specialists and theologians from the Vatican who found no scientific explanation for that healing. Carlo Acutis was beatified in February 2020 after Pope Francis recognized that miracle.
Yesterday in Assisi, Carlo Acutis was beatified. His testimony shows today's young people that true happiness is found by putting God first and serving Him in our brothers, especially the least among them.
Because of a great devotion to Saint Francis, because of a very strong relationship with animals, with charity, with everything, what always brought Carlo Acutis closer to the great Saint Francis, his body was brought here to the sanctuary of Assisi in Italy. The beatification process had already begun when, on April 6, 2019, the body of Carlo Acutis was brought here to the Sanctuary of Renunciation in Assisi. We are here in this walled city, which is the entire city of Assisi, where the Basilica of St. Francis is located, and where there are many other churches also dedicated to St. Clare. And here is the church of Santa Maria Maggiore, a very simple church, which was actually chosen to house the tomb of Carlo Acutis. It was interesting that at the moment we arrived at the church, there was a Mass in Spanish taking place, entirely for young people. There were 2 of them helping the priest during the Eucharist, helping the priest during the Mass.
Thank you, Lord.
The more we receive the Eucharist, the more we become like Jesus. So that on earth we will have a foretaste of heaven. Many people come here and ask themselves, if this body is really incorrupt here, if this is really the skin of St. Carlo Acutis. To answer this question, I'm going to talk to Dom Domenico, who is the Bishop of Assisi and was the person in charge of the exhumation of the body.
Because he had told his mother, this is the city I like the most. It's because of St. Francis, of course, and St. Clare. And his mother had asked, when you die, I imagined it would be much later when you were older. Where would you want to be? Miliars also didn't want to be in Assisi, and his mother remembered that. And she put him in the Assisi cemetery. After 3 or 4 years, when I formally and legally established the sanctuary here, Carlos was declared venerable. And from the cemetery, he had to be taken out and placed elsewhere. Where will I put him? Providence had already given me the sign. In the sanctuary of the spoliation, which was also the Francisco Hovem sanctuary. And if you are explaining the gospel to Carlos in such a simple way, it is not against modernity, it is not against beauty, it is not against technology. The gospel opposes only sin, not anything else. God.
I really wanted to understand. After all, if this perfect body we see is incorrupt, as many people have said, or if it was preserved, like what happened, for example, to the bodies of Saint Catherine Labouré in Paris and Bernadette Soubirous, the visionary of Lourdes. Bishop Sorrentino is the right person to answer.
Yes, the bones, here, yes, inside here, yes, the whole body is here. There are some parts that cannot remain. And from the other part, we are making relics because after 10 years, the body deteriorates. We speak in Italian, right? Yes, just like in Portuguese. The face was all like blind, yes. And we have to make this face because it was an artist who did all of this. The Church has always displayed the saint's body and relics because through the body of the saint we have a presence that helps us with what? It's not magic making things happen like that. It's a presence that helps us convert. We have a testimony of his humanity, sanctified humanity, to say to ourselves, I want to be holy in my body, in my soul. You see, to say, I want to be like him. Death is not the last word either. The last word is the Lord's word, the word of life.
Yeah. The presence we feel is moving. Even knowing that this isn't his real skin, that his body was reconstructed with wax. First, all of his relics, as we saw in the conversation with Dom Domenico, all the relics, the bones, everything that was in the coffin, almost everything was brought here, except for a few small relics that have been distributed around the world. But this is a first-class relic of a saint, the youngest saint in the Catholic Church, the first saint of this millennium. A place so full of history. It's interesting to think that Carlo Acutis himself wanted to be brought here after he died. He wanted his body to come here. Being such an ancient place and such a young saint. We know that the reason was the devotion to St. Francis. This city is totally connected to St. Francis. The tomb of St. Francis is right here next to us. But it's still interesting. Such a modern saint, the saint of the internet, as some say, is buried here. Actually not buried, but in a tomb open to the public, in a place so full of history. And now I've arrived here at the crypt, which is also another chapter of this story, which I want to tell you now. It's an interesting story about this crypt. It is known as Domus Propertius or Domus Propertio in reference to a Roman poet who lived before Christ, between 50 and 15 years before Christ. He was a great Roman poet, and tradition says that he lived here. It's really cool and interesting to see how there are these Roman-style columns down here, columns from the time of Jesus. In this area, we imagine it was the living room of Propertius's house, the poet, or of his descendants. And today it is located exactly underneath the church of Santa Maria Maggiore. This also shows us what archaeology is like. We learn that underneath one building another one appears, and this tells us about that past time. And the higher we go, the closer we get to the present. And this whole archaeological perspective is also very interesting in a religious sense. A crypt from the time of Jesus underneath the tomb of a saint from our own time. Sister Francisca, I saw how involved you were here at the sanctuary today. Very intense. What is your work here? What is the work of the Capuchin sisters?
Look, we, the Capuchin sisters and laywomen, have been here in this sanctuary since 2017. So our role here is to welcome those who arrive, the pilgrims, to be a place where people are heard, really offering that Brazilian hospitality, truly Brazilian hospitality.
Is it just you here in the sanctuary?
We arrived here before he did, so we witnessed the entire process of CARLO ACUTIS' arrival. And for us, it's always a reason for joy. We didn't ask to be here. God prepared St. Francis, invited us to be here right in the place of renunciation, and we see that this place is a sign of hope. We as sisters are always praying. We are seeing a change in the pilgrims who arrive. At first, we saw that people came out of curiosity. They would think, it's a saint, there's a body here, so many came expecting to see it. And today we can already see that those who come always come to ask for a grace. Many people act as intercessors. They make a video call, show the body, and ask for a grace. And the beautiful thing is that we actually see the answer. And he is just a bridge to find Christ.
He used to say, not me,
but God. We see that St. Francis, when he understood the calling, he used to say that love is not loved. CARLO ACUTIS in our own time says, not me, but God. And we even find ourselves wondering, but why did this young man notice this detail? Could it be that he saw that the people we were putting forward were always the ones in the spotlight? I do, I want, my group, I command, I buy. And this young man said to me, not me, but God, because he was able to put God at the center of his life. The beauty of this boy. Whenever we teach catechism to groups, we say, but what did he do that was extraordinary? This young man, 15 years old, he put God at the center of his life. And he didn't have just a vertical dimension. He could have been just a worshiper. He worshipped and that's it. But that worship became flesh.
It's practically impossible to leave here without being touched by the story of this boy who died so young and already left such a deep legacy, right? And I keep thinking, how do you think Carlo faced the news that he had an illness and that his life would be so short? How do you think he reflected when he realized that his earthly mission, which he pursued so diligently online, would be too brief? I offer all my suffering to God, to the Pope, and to the Church, he said. I'm happy to die because I live my life without wasting a minute on things that don't please God. Carlo was devoted to Our Lady of Aparecida and died on October 12th. That was also the month of St. Francis's death, who was the saint that inspired Carlo throughout his entire life. And it's interesting to think, right, that his friends and teachers from school said that he used to defend the weakest. Even as a child, he defended the oppressed and didn't like injustice. And at a certain point in his life, Carlo started asking his parents to take him to pilgrimage sites, like Assisi, for example, which was a very memorable visit when he was here. Carlo took many other trips with his parents, he went to many other places, and he always wanted to seek out what he called, right, the places where Eucharistic miracles had happened. He was very interested in miracles related to the host, which in Catholicism is understood as the real presence of the body of Jesus at Mass, in the host. The sacred host is within Catholicism the presence of Jesus. And Carlo wanted to document these miracles, and he used his knowledge of the internet, social networks, and website creation. Right, he made his own website to share not only these trips he took, but also what he was discovering about Eucharistic miracles. On the website, Carlo wrote some rules that he considered fundamental for a person who wanted to live a holy life. Some people who knew him, some people who already followed him during his lifetime understood this, and they made a comparison with commandments or rules that appeared throughout the history of Christianity and also Judaism. It's inevitable for us to think of the Ten Commandments, but of course they weren't commandments. Carlo wasn't making that claim. He was a very simple boy, actually, but I think it's interesting for us to get to know the rules of St. Carlo Acutis. Always be united with Jesus, attend Mass and receive the Eucharist daily, pray the Rosary every day, go to confession frequently, be friends with the guardian angels, practice charity, avoid sin, and fight against evil. Use technology for evangelization, seek holiness as a priority, and finally be original, not a copy. Of all of them, this last one is the one that makes me reflect the most. Carlo used to say that we are all born as originals, but many of us die as photocopies. He was talking about the lack of originality in people who are always chasing likes on the internet, who keep imitating other people's behavior, trying to look like something they're not. It was a reflection he made about the times we live in, which obviously have a lot of good things, but also many things we need to stop and pay attention to. In the view of the saint we just got to know better, being original was a sign that we understood God had a specific plan for each one of us. It doesn't really matter here whether you believe in the same things Carlo believed in or not, but it's hard not to think about the importance of what he said. Each one of us writes our own story. There's even a song that talked about that. Each one of us chooses our own path. And our path is ours alone. It's something we carry inside, and we should always be searching for it. On this road that is our life, which sometimes leads to the sky or sometimes just to the next town, like the one I'm headed to now. Our journey continues.